There's a moment in every journey, in healing, in elevation, in the reclaiming of self, when the outside must begin to match the inside. Where your space, your sanctuary, it either keeps you stuck or calls you forward. Today's guest is a woman who doesn't just rearrange furniture. No, she helps you rearrange your future. Janet Woods is a pioneer, a Neuro-Design architect, a Feng Shui master, and the founder of the rehoming movement, an ancient science rooted in sacred wisdom and modern Neuro-Design. What if the reason you feel stuck or sick or out of alignment isn't internal, but spatial? What if your environment is holding your destiny hostage? On this pivotal point, we're reclaiming the sacred power of spaces, uncovering secrets that were never meant to reach us, and learning how to unlock the hidden architecture of our soul's success. Let's get into it. Let's welcome Neuro-Design architect and Feng Shui master Janet Woods to the Pivotal Point with Dwayne Barnes. Welcome, Janet.
Oh, thank you so much, Dwayne. I've so been looking forward to sharing all the wonderful information that I have with you and your listeners.
And I have been excitedly waiting to hear it all. So let's get started. Every healer and visionary has a journey, and I'm sure you are no different. So would you share a glimpse of your backstory and what called you into this powerful work that you do today?
Well, I can tell you that no one wakes up in the morning and says, you know what, I'm going to be a Feng Shui expert. It just doesn't happen. And so I was working in the corporate world. I worked for one of the Fortune 500 companies in a call center, and I was a manager. And my people that I worked with, they had certain parameters in which they had to meet in order for people to get service. And so I was looking for a way for them to be more productive, like any good manager would. And so one night, I've always been a fan of news shows, so to speak. So one night I was watching 60 Minutes, and Ed Bradley was interviewing Larry Ellison. Larry is the founder of Oracle, and they had just moved into a new facility in San Francisco. And Larry was explaining to Ed how he had hired a Feng Shui master to come in and Feng Shui his office, and that the company had tripled in their profits. And I was like, what is that? And I'm like, I want that. I need that. But I couldn't remember the name of it and what it was. So with lots of research and going back and looking at different aspects, I found a teacher who would allow me to learn Feng Shui. At that time, in the early 90s, we as Americans were not familiar with it at all. And the people that were using it were the top 3%. And so I was really fortunate to be able to find someone that would teach me Feng Shui. Her name was Lillian Bridges. She has since passed away, but her institute was the Lotus Institute, and that's where I started to learn the aspects of Feng Shui. And she encouraged me to learn more than one form of Feng Shui. There are 9 schools. And in those 9 schools, over 2 decades, I have learned all 9 and teach them as well. And that's kind of how I got started.
Wow. So really, what is Feng Shui? For someone who's never heard of Feng Shui, what is it?
Feng Shui is a Chinese art in which your environment has a way of affecting your life. The word Feng Shui is wind and water, 2 things that we cannot live without. And so in the Asian community, they use it as a science, as an art, in order to get an edge on their lives. or to have a better life for their offspring. And that's pretty much what it is in a nutshell. The ability to change your environment so that you can be successful. And it's based on the principle that everyone deserves to have health, wealth, and of course, happiness.
So you're starting this, you call it rehoming. So
Yes.
what inspired you to launch this rehoming movement? I love that expression, rehoming.
Well, we as Americans, we have I want to say, we enjoy collecting things, buying things. It's really funny when we take a look at our society as Americans and the rest of the world. And so we as Americans, things that we accumulate that we no longer want, we call it clutter. I do not think in my practice that clutter is such a bad thing, because it's a symbol of you collecting and becoming abundant. And so when I hear people say, oh, I've got clutter, I correct them and say, oh, you have abundance. And it changes that whole mind shift of what you have in your space. Rehoming is the art of taking the things that you have or things that you no longer want to have and removing them, releasing them so that your space feels much better. But in addition to that, for everything that you let go, it allows something new to come in. When new things come in, that changes your whole world. And so rehoming is about taking the things that no longer serve you and helping them to find a new home. And everybody wants that.
Yes, we do. Yes, we do. That's beautiful. Now, you have said that success starts with the environment. Why is that? And what shifts when the space shifts?
Well, the best way to describe this is we become what we see over time. And so in your home or in your office, I know for me, a lot of people, when they set up their home office, they set it up and they never think about moving things around. It's like their office. Of course, we're not talking about piles of paper, but most Americans, we learn how to decorate from HGTV and, the internet, TikTok. That's how we learn how to decorate our spaces. But that's really not what we want to do. What we're looking at is you want to, over time, create a space that reflects your inner person. In order to do that, you have to have an outer representation of who you want to be in the future and who you are now. I'm sure that if we were to ask someone to show us what their bedroom liked when they were 12 years old, does not look like what it is today. And so I want you to keep that in mind when we talk about your environment. Jack Canfield, he tells a story about his shift when it came to an environment. He at that time had not written or done the Chicken Soup for the Soul books. And he was working, actually, I think that at that time, not sure who he was working for, but one of the things he did is that he taped a $100 bill to the ceiling in his bedroom so that every night when he went to bed, he would look up and he would see that $100 bill. And his goal was to be a millionaire. And so with that representation, when he would go to sleep, he would wake up in the morning. So it's the last thing he saw when he woke up and the last thing he saw when he went to sleep and the first thing he saw in the morning. And today he is a millionaire, but it was a representation of where he wanted to go. And so when we talk about environment, you need to look at it from that way. The 3% in the world, they know that Neuro-Design and Feng Shui will make them millions and beat the competition. And so we as ordinary people, when we take on that information and do it in such a way that makes us successful, then it shifts everything around you. If you were to, let's say, go on a home tour of somebody that is either famous or wealthy, you would see that their environment actually reflects who they are at that time and why. And so I always encourage people that when you shift or change your, well, actually, I have a friend, Karen Rosh Carter, who wrote a book that actually gives you the message. Move your stuff, change your life. And that's what happens when you start with your environment and shift it so that you can create who you want to be and who you are being.
Oh, I got two questions, but I'll ask this one first because I really want you to define what Neuro-Design is.
Yes.
What is Neuro-Design? Yes.
Neuro-Design and neuroarchitecture is the science of how spaces affect us. Neuroarchitecture came about in the 50s and the 60s because designers were using that to design schools and mental institutions because they wanted to be able to control the people that were in the spaces. And so that's kind of how it came about. As we learned more about it, it shifted over to Neuro-Design, which is how your brain is affected by the space that you're in. Very similar to Feng Shui, but more on a scientific level. And when we take a look at it from the science aspect, we can see how offices and places in which we go in what we call public spaces have a way of controlling what our behavior and our activity is. And so that's kind of what Neuro-Design is.
Wow. So, with the Feng Shui and the Neuro-Design, like, how does it work actually? I mean, it may sound woo-woo to some people, but is it like scientific, or how would you explain it? What's happening?
It's both.
Okay.
It's both, because you want your environment to reflect who you are or who you want to be over time. You know that, but we're not taught in school how to do that. When we take a look at neuroarchitecture, they've been doing this for decades. And so a majority of office spaces are built on that until someone like me comes in and says, you have it all right, but you're missing the human aspect of it. How are humans reacting to their space, and is this the outcome that you want?
Okay, and I know you mentioned, I don't know if you mentioned it to me when we were previously talking, or I read it, that you said that most of the Feng Shui that the public knows, because a lot of people know about Feng Shui because it was a big movement, but you're saying that it was watered down. And what's being hidden, and why is that being hidden from everybody if it benefits everybody?
Well, here's a couple of things that I'm happy to share with you and your audience. Feng Shui is a 5,000-year-old science and art. And it's based on an oral tradition where it was passed down from master to student. As a matter of fact, in China, when it was first introduced, it was only for the wealthy and only for royalty. And so in the palace, there was a Feng Shui master, and he was not allowed to leave the palace without permission. And so he got to see his family once a year for a week, spend time with them before he was required to go back to the palace. Interesting enough, a way to take a look at this is that most Asian arts, and not just the Chinese, but the Asian community, they have an oral tradition, and it is hidden from the rest of it because it's part of their culture. And so unless you are part of that culture or associates with somebody that is part of that, it is hidden from us as Americans and also from the world. They don't want us to have their traditions. And it's watered down because in Feng Shui, one of the things I learned as part of that is that the Feng Shui person was not allowed to share any of the things that he was doing in the palace. And so when he came home, his village, they would get together and they would go, show us how we can make our lives better. And so he would show them a few things. Well, when the emperor found out about it, they were going to put him to death. And so the Feng Shui master said, you know what, I have so much knowledge to share. And so the emperor said, here's what we're going to do. I want you to develop a false school of Feng Shui, and then you can give that to the people. But the real Feng Shui belongs to me. And if I hear that people are doing things that belong to me, I will put you to death. And so the false school of Feng Shui came about because of that, and it is still used today in the world. But most people don't know that what they are studying or what they are learning is from that school.
Wow. Do you, or can you share, or is it too deep to tell the differences between how someone will know it's the false school versus the true school?
Well, here's something I want to also share with you and your audience, is that when I started to study Feng Shui, I had to go all over the world to get my studies because a lot of Feng Shui masters or masters in general will not come to the United States. So you have to go where they are. So when I was traveling to China learning from other masters, what I found was all Feng Shui masters in the East are trained in what we call the 5 treasures. So they're trained in healing, giving people their destiny, using mystical arts to move energy, and of course, environment. And so we in America, we were only trained in possibly a couple of schools of Feng Shui. And so that's another way in which they keep that information hidden and from the rest of the world. But that's why it's considered an art and a science. And so it's kind of like when Bruce Lee came to America to teach Westerners Kung Fu. He met a lot of resistance and almost lost his life because he just wanted to share that knowledge. Today, we don't need to worry about losing our life, but there's still very hidden traits and treasures inside of the art and science of Feng Shui.
So let me ask you, how did your identity, I mean, as an African American woman, like, how did your identity give you access that others didn't have? Like, how did they allow you into all of this secret profession?
Well, at first, when I was studying Feng Shui, there was quite the resistance, which, you know, I'm very thankful for my teacher because she, the best way to describe it is that she felt that the more you know about Feng Shui, the more people you're going to be able to help. And so in the Asian community, when the Feng Shui master comes to their house, the neighbors all know that there's a problem. And so they gossip about it. Majority of Feng Shui masters are male and they're Asian. I'm not. So when I come to their house, they just think that I'm another person as opposed to the Feng Shui master coming to change their life.
So you allow them to keep their secret.
Yes, and I have to thank SCORE. SCORE is an organization of nonprofit retired people from business that help entrepreneurs get started or understand how they can improve their business. And so I went to the SCORE office right after I had taken a few classes in Feng Shui. And the person I was working with, he's a little older, And so I was telling him, I'm a Feng Shui master and I need to know how to get clients and I explained what it was. And he looked at me and he goes, Janet, he goes, I don't know what that is, but guess what? Your clientele are people that are in the Asian community because they know what it is and they will be happy to become clients, which he was right about.
Wow. Wow. Ooh, so you're a feng shui master. What is the feng shui master? What does that mean, just for us lay people? You know it all?
When, oh, well, here's the beauty of feng shui is that you will never know it all because just when you think you know something, you know nothing. And that is what I learned from my first feng shui teacher. The science itself is so vast that no person can actually master it. But the way to measure how much experience people have, it's in regards to the years in which they have been studying and the years in which they have been applying the science and art. And so I have been studying and practicing since 1995. And so, and every time I think about getting out of the profession, because I'm like, when am I going to retire? I get pulled back in because there's such a need for this information in the world, and especially in our community, because people, when they hear about it, they think it's something superstitious or something bad. And the more people think like that, the less access they have to it.
Yeah, I'm sure. I'm sure. I'm sure. Well, let's help them. Let's help them. Let's help 'em. What are some of the most powerful transformations that you've seen when somebody truly embraced the changes you suggested? Because I'm sure you have to go into their environment and suggest changes, and a lot of people resist. But let's talk about some of the success stories that you have seen.
Oh, I would love to share that. And just to help your listeners understand, is that we as humans are resistant to change. And so there's an old joke that I heard, which really applies to how quickly people want to have a transformation. There was an old cowboy, and he's sitting in the saloon, and he has his dog with him, and the dog is moaning. And so the bartender goes, "What's wrong with your dog?" And he says, "Oh, he's laying on a nail." And the bartender goes, "Well, why is he laying on the nail?" And the cowboy says, "He's not in enough pain to get off of it."
Mm, 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 mm.
And so when we talk about transformation, we are resistant to things that we don't know.
Mm-hmm.
But the more information we get, the more we are likely to try something, or we have someone in our circle of influence that has done it and been successful.
Mm-hmm.
And so when I look at the transformations that some of my people have had, it usually is because they either have experienced it or they have seen it. And so I have one person that I worked with. He contacted me as a referral because he was moving up into what we call the C-suite. And so he wanted to become a vice president of marketing. And he had just gotten a promotion that would allow that to happen. So he called me, and he didn't know very much about Feng Shui, but he knew the person that was in his office that he was now in had used it to get a promotion. And so I went to visit him, and he told his secretary that I was a coach and not to be disturbed. And I was like, you know what, whatever works. And so, we sat down, we took a look at redesigning his office, which he was very happy to do. And one of the things that he shared with me is that the person that had his office before had put coins in the ceiling, and he wanted that. And I go, that's really not a problem. And so we used some Chinese coins tied them with red ribbon, and put them in the ceiling. And so I told him, I go, whenever you're having a tough day or you're unsure about what direction you want to go, I want you to look at the ceiling where the coins are, because that's going to be your guiding light. 6 months later, he was promoted to vice president of marketing.
Wow.
And years later, he went on to lead that department.
Wow.
And every year we would get together and we would talk about what his goals are and change things in his office, because he went from one small office to one humongous office.
Wow.
And so that's just one story. But, I have ordinary people that, they contact me and they say, you know what, I want to have a better life. And I've been reading this book and it's really confusing. And, I just want to be able to have a change. And so I have one business client who was getting ready to close her business. And her friend said, you know what, before you close the business, I want you to meet Janet. So we went and had coffee, and she is in the tech world, which is very rare at that time. Very few women in tech that own their own business. And so I asked her what she envisioned for the future. And so we started working together. And at first she was happy to do everything that I asked. And as she became more successful, it was like, well, you know what? I'm doing really well with this. I don't know if I want to change to that. And I go, you want to change to that, because in a small space, it's difficult to expand unless you're in a larger space with room to grow. And so as we work together throughout the years, she has grown her business, which is now worth millions. Now she's ready to hand it off. And so you need to understand the tenets of Feng Shui and Neuro-Design, because her people are in the space that she created for them so that they can be successful also. And so most of her people have not only been successful within her business, but they've been successful in life as well.
So how often does resistance block the results? I'm sure pretty often. Is there an example where outside of this one, because that was a powerful one, is there another example where you went into someone's home and tried to tell them, made suggestions and they just refused and they didn't get the results, or any stories around that? Yeah.
Yeah, well, people are really kind.
Okay.
And so when I'm working with them, I have one person who contacted me, and she was like, my girlfriend has been getting this success, and I want what she has. And I explained to her, I go, well, you're not going to get what she has because that was what she wanted to create. What do you want to create? And so we talked about what she wanted to create. And I did my walkthrough, I did my report, and I do a follow-up within 30 days of working with the person. So in the follow-up, I come over and nothing has changed. And I said, well, maybe she just needs a little more time. And so I asked her about making some changes, and she goes, well, I really like the way that I have it, and I really don't want to move that because blah, blah, blah. And I said, well, I can understand that. And I go, but if you could just change one little thing, that would just kind of get us started. So I come back, and it's been 60 days, and she hasn't really done anything. And I'm like, are you sure that you want to, do this? And she goes, I did change this and this, and it didn't work. So, I'm happy with what's going on. And I go, but what about your goals? And she goes, it'll happen. But, at this time, I don't want to change my space because I spent so much money and so much time in getting it perfect that I don't want to change it. Well, 6 months later, she calls me and she goes, I'm ready. I'm like, what happened? She goes, my friend got married. And I go, well, that's really good. And she goes, I'm ready because, I really have tried everything within the last 6 months thinking that it would work. I went online, I started dating, I started meeting jerks, and I go, no problem. And so this time we looked at it from fresh eyes. And within a year, she met her partner, and they're still together today.
Wow. Wow. It works if you work it. It works if you work it.
Even if you don't work it, it works because it's based on art and science.
What do you mean by that? Even if you don't work it, it works. Like, because she had to put she had to do what you suggested her to do, right? In order for it to work,
Yes,
right? Yeah.
yes. I'll share with you a story that my Feng Shui teacher gave us.
Okay.
She had a client who was a girlfriend, said that she wanted to meet more men. And so my teacher Feng Shuied her bedroom and said, this is what we're going to do. This is where things are going to go. And she said, okay. And what's really interesting is that my teacher told her, she goes, you have to be really careful about what you bring into the bedroom. And because the bedroom is meant to be a space for making love and sharing love. And so you don't want to have like a television or your office or anything. It's all about making love. She's like, not a problem. So my teacher ran into her probably about a month or so later, actually a couple months, and she asked how things were going. And her friend said, things are really going great, but I don't understand why I keep meeting men of the Mormon faith. She goes, I'm not Mormon and there's nothing wrong with that. She goes, it's just like everyone that I've been dating ends up being Mormon. What is that? And so my teacher goes, well, let's go take a look at what's going on. So she walks into the bedroom and she looks at the nightstands, and on the nightstand is the Book of Mormon.
No.
Yes. My teacher goes, I didn't know you were Mormon. She goes, no, I'm not. She goes, one of the men that I was dating gave me the book. So I just kind of read it from time to time to fall asleep.
Wow.
So my teacher's like, I think you need to put this on the bookshelf and let's take a look at what kind of other men can show up.
Wow. So you basically got me together. Now I understand what you're saying. It's like even if you're not aware of it, it's impacting you.
Your environment is impacting you on all kinds of levels.
This episode is brought to you by the Courage to Be Freedom Coaching. If you're ready to reclaim your voice, root into your truth, and start leading from the inside out, I'd love to work with you. Book a one-on-one session today at authordwaynebarnes.com. You don't have to lead alone. Let's walk this thing together. This is powerful. This is so powerful. And so as a neuro-design architect, so how do brain science and spatial design come together to shape the behavior and outcomes? We may have already said it, but I just want to re-ask it again.
Yeah, we can take a look at it again. We ourselves as humans are visual creatures. And so science tells us that when we see things over and over again, we become accustomed to it. And our subconscious is telling us, well, this is normal. So this is what we're going to be doing. And so over time, when we take a look at the things, for instance, that you have in your office, if you move things around, you're changing your visual story. When you change your visual story, you change the frequency that exists in that space. And so when we talk about brain science, your executive function remembers that. And so the brain is always looking for something new. So if you don't switch up your environment, that energy becomes stale. And you continue to do the things that aren't making you successful, or you continue to do things that are routine. So whenever you do something from a visual aspect and change it, you change your destiny. And that's how we, as I want to say neuro designers and feng shui experts, view the world.
Ooh, Janet, this is some powerful information. I am so blessed to have you have this conversation with me and my listeners. I really am. I'm blown away. Let me ask you, so do you see rehoming as a spiritual or ancestral reclamation? And how does it touch people on a soul level?
I see it as both.
Okay.
When we take a look at indigenous people and Native Americans, they live their life outside, but they also knew that even though they are living on the land, that everything they do on the land is sacred. And so when they started building structures such as, their teepees in their homes, or, the Aborigines, any indigenous tribe, they have a way of introducing spirituality into their home dwelling. Because when we look at spirit, where does that come from? It doesn't come from things, it comes from the universe or spirit itself. And so the ability to shift energy using a spiritual format allows us as humans to have a much better life. And so when I look at rehoming, I'm looking at the fact that you're removing something from your environment that no longer serves you. When people get ready to sell their home, they usually have, let's say, a realtor that will come in and bring sage to sage the house. What they believe they are doing is that they are shifting the spiritual energy of the house so that someone else can come in and have an experience as if they own the house. And so that's why I said it's both. We have a lot of rituals that we do as humans, not knowing that it is actually a spiritual aspect in which you're doing it from a rehoming way. Does that make sense? And so you give your space what we consider to be a bath. You give your space an energy bath. Just like we take baths and showers, your home needs to have that too. And so when I look at rehoming as far as a spiritual and ancestral reclamation, I see it as both. You're letting go of old things so that new things can come in.
So if someone is sick all the time, or frustrated, or angry, or hurt, or victimhood, like I've dealt with my whole life, changing my home, changing my environment can begin to heal me, basically, is what you're saying.
Yes.
Wow.
I'll give you another example. When I first got my first apartment, my friend came over and brought me this beautiful graphic of a woman looking out the window. And I was just so touched about that picture, the fact that she gave it to me, I didn't think twice about what it meant. Years later, when I would move, I would take this with me. And I was always struggling with relationships because I thought, well, everybody struggles with relationships. Well, when I started to study Feng Shui, I realized that having a picture of one lonely woman looking out the window was keeping me lonely and single. So I no longer have that picture. I rehomed it to Goodwill because I'm sure that someone would appreciate it. And all the pictures and graphics that I have in my home, and I recommend for people that are looking for relationships, is to have a representation of what you want.
Okay, so when you shifted that, did it bring love into your life?
Yes, it does. But
Ah, it did. It
yes,
did. Yes.
yes. Me and my husband are celebrating 23 years of marriage.
Ooh, congratulations.
Thank you.
Congratulations.
Thank you.
That
But
is
yes, yes.
That's amazing. That's amazing. Okay, so maybe you've already said it, but is there one thing that listeners can do right now to begin shifting their environment for a breakthrough? Is there just one tidbit that you can share that our listeners can start to do right now?
I am happy that you asked that because here's the one tidbit. And I want people to have fun with it as opposed to being very serious. Because when it comes to goals and breakthroughs, people are like, I have to have it now. And so, what I want you to do is to start with 3 items within your space that you can move or remove or box up and put away. Just do one of those things with each one of the items. What that will do is it will uplift the space in your environment. And it's a way of you asking the universe to manifest your heart's desire. Because you're opening up a space for you to have something amazing. And as we both know, nature does not, nature always makes us fill a void. And
Yes.
so when you look at it from that aspect, just 3 items. Don't make it complicated. Just 3 things.
Nice, nice. You about to say something?
Oh no, I'm good. I'm good.
Okay, because I was going to ask you, like, I have a storage closet in my home.
Yes.
Does that matter? Is that affecting me? The stuff that I have kind of hidden away, does that still impact you, or is that okay?
No, it's okay
Okay,
because you've identified what it is for.
okay,
So,
okay.
yeah, storage isn't the problem because you're not seeing anything that's in it.
Mm,
Now, if you leave the door open all the time, that's a problem.
so it's really the things that your eyes are laying on, the things that you're seeing on a daily basis, they are impacting you on a subconscious level, whether you know it or
Mhm.
not.
Yes, your visual intelligence is creating your world.
Your visual intelligence is creating your world.
Hmm.
That is very, very fascinating. And I believe every word that you're speaking. And I am definitely going to start applying this into my world. I don't know about my listeners, but I am sold. So is this expensive working with you? I mean, do you want to talk about how does, yeah, because I know a lot of the listeners like, oh, I bet that's $1 million, or I bet it's five, so how how expensive is this?
It can be pricey because most of the people that I work with them on an annual basis. So I work on a retainer because I have found that whenever I'm working with someone, sometimes they get I shouldn't say sometimes. Majority of the time they get what they ask for and they're not ready for it. I'll give you a story.
Yeah, please, because I was going to say, explain that one.
I had a woman, her husband passed away, and she was grieving. And in her grief, she decided, well, you know what, I'm just going to focus on my business and, I'm just going to let things happen the way they're going to. She met a person, one of my clients, and so she called me and asked me if I would come over and take a look at her fitness studio. I said, oh, I'd be happy to. So I went to visit her at her studio, and she didn't know what Feng Shui was, but she was doing it because my client had asked her to at least have a conversation with me. So I walk into the studio. It's in an upscale neighborhood, and the studio itself, the colors are yellow and black. And so is her logo and all the other things that are in the space. And so I asked her where her concept came from. And she was like, people don't like to work out. And so she goes, because they don't like to work out, I created something that would make them want to work out or force them to work out. And I'm thinking, nobody wants to be forced to work out. And I go, yellow and black, that's the color of bumblebees. And people don't like bumblebees unless they're giving honey. And so we took a look at shifting some of the colors that were in the studio. And one of the things we did is we painted one of the walls red. Because she said people would come to the studio and they would hang out all day. She didn't want them to stay there. So we painted one of the walls red, and people started to come and work out and go home. And people started to gravitate toward the studio. And she started getting more clients. And as she got more clients, her business started to expand. She got to hire more people so that she didn't have to be there all the time. So even though she was still grieving her husband, she's like, you know what? I think that I'm ready for a new relationship. And I'm like, okay. So we did some feng shui at the house, and she met a person. Within 6 months, they were getting married. And I'm like, well, you know that if you're going to get married, you probably need to move to a bigger house. And I go, because this is the house that you shared with your husband before. So they bought a bigger house. Well, first they got married. Then they bought a bigger house. And then they had a child. And so during that time frame, she's like, oh, she goes, all of this is happening within 2 years. And so when I look at her as the continuing cycle of what it is that people want, sometimes doing feng shui takes you to some place that you never imagined, but Spirit did. Wow. She never thought that she would be a mom. And so here she is, having her business, happily married with a child.
Wow.
And so everything is possible, but it starts with your environment.
Wow, that is perfect. That is perfect. She went from yellow and black, painting that wall red, and everything just began to just shift and shift and shift.
Because the color red is all about passion. Oh, and you know what was really funny is that there was a fitness studio down the street from her. As she started to get busy, they painted all of their walls red.
Smart people.
Not exactly, because we cannot handle too much red.
Oh, it was too much red.
It was too much red. So people would come and they would come back.
That is hilarious. That is hilarious. Okay, so you also teach. You started the Institute of Asian Metaphysics?
Yes, I did. When you asked about how much things cost, one of the things I realized is not everyone can afford my fees. And so I started to teach so that people could do their DIY feng shui and also neuroarchitecture. And so the Institute of Asian Metaphysics is a place where you can go to find out about our classes and what we offer. That's my way of people that can't afford me have the ability to do their own feng shui. And at the Institute of Asian Metaphysics, I also train people in the 5 arts. And so I do believe, probably about 15 students who are currently trained in the modalities in which I am trained, because I wanted to be able to leave a legacy. Les Brown says, don't die with your music in you.
Right. No, that's beautiful. That's a beautiful way of giving back. That's amazing and powerful. And just as you are. So are there any pivotal words that you would like to leave our listeners with? I mean, you said so much, but is there anything that we have left unsaid that you want to share with me and our listeners?
Yes, I would encourage everyone to take a look at their space and rehome things that you no longer like, use, or think somebody else would like it more than you. But also, don't be afraid of change, because your ability to change things opens up a whole new world that you don't even know exists. And so I encourage you to, feed your brain so that your environment can feed you.
Beautiful. Now, does this also apply to your relationships, your personal relationships? Is that something totally different, or can people feng shui their relationships?
People feng shui their relationships all the time. All the time, because it's about you loving yourself so that you can allow other people to love you. And so feng shui, the two things that people call me about, top two, finance and romance. And it's in that order. And so I'm working with someone like myself, allows you to have both, but there's work involved and there's a belief system that needs to be adapted so that you can have the best in life. That's why the 3% use what I do as a way of having leverage and keeping what they have as well. And now your listeners can do the same because their minds have been opened.
Yes. They would have to be deaf, dumb, and blind not to receive this. No offense, because if you don't receive it, I don't judge you. But this has been like so liberating and so like transforming for me. And I just want to say that it has been my supreme pleasure to not only get to share this space with you, but to also learn about something that was foreign to me and that I know that I'm going to add it in my life in some kind of way. And I just want to thank you for all that you do to usher this healing and this thriving sensibility into this beautiful world. Now I would have said chaotic world, but the first time I talked to you, you was like, no, don't say you're old, you're young. So I know words have power.
Words have power.
So I'm trying to attract beauty all in my life. So I see the beauty in this world. So I want to just thank you, Janet. Janet, let us know, how can the listeners reach you?
They can visit my website at janetwoods.com. They can also email me at janet@janetwoods.com. And also, I'm not sure. Those are probably the best ways to reach me because I'm connected to my phone all the time.
Yes. Okay. Wonderful. And you are wonderful. And I thank you for so much for being on the Pivotal Point with Dwayne Barnes. And you gave us all some pivotal points. And hopefully everyone who listens will begin to apply it into their lives and contact you and reach out and change their lives through Feng Shui and Neuro-Design. Let's do it.
Well, Dwayne, thank you so much for having me as a guest and also allowing me to share my gifts with the world.
Anytime you want to come back and share your gifts, I would love to have you.
Oh, thank you.
All righty. Thank you, Janet.
The pivotal point. What if the breakthroughs you've been waiting for isn't about working harder, but moving your couch? What if the sacred science of space has been whispering to you all along, asking you to rearrange the outer so the inner can finally excel? Janet Woods reminded us today that healing is not just internal, it's architectural. That your environment can either support your oppression or amplify your expansion. The space you live in shapes the life you're able to step into. So the next time you feel stuck, don't just change your mind. Change your room and watch the future you've been praying for finally arrive. Thank you for listening to The Pivotal Point with Dwayne Barnes, the podcast where we dive deep, speak truth, and set souls free. If this episode moved you, please subscribe, share it with someone you love, and leave us a review. We need some reviews. Your support helps us to spread this healing message far and wide. Until next time, stay courageous, stay true, stay you.